Getting a new organ is a second chance at life, but the moment a transplanted kidney is connected, a biological war begins. The patient's own immune system detects the new tissue as a foreign invader and immediately begins attacking it. To protect the transplant, doctors have to constantly monitor the patient for signs of rejection. The problem is, the standard method they use, measuring creatinine levels in the blood, is a lagging indicator. By the time creatinine spikes, the organ has already suffered serious damage. The alternative is a tissue biopsy. This requires physically cutting into the transplanted organ, a painful procedure that carries a real risk of complications and often misses the damaged area entirely. Relying on these late-stage signals or invasive surgical cuts puts physicians in a terrible position. They are forced to run a reactive race against a failing organ, and far too often they lose. The medical field recently found a highly accurate way to track organ health: donor-derived cell-free DNA. When a transplanted organ is under stress, it releases fragments of its own DNA directly into the patient's bloodstream. Doctors can measure these fragments with a simple blood draw to catch rejection early. But the diagnostics industry built a logistical bottleneck around this biology. Right now, the dominant testing companies rely entirely on a centralized lab business model. When a hospital draws a patient's blood, they have to pack it in ice, ship it across the country, and wait days for a distant corporate facility to run the test and return the results. This architecture burns immense amounts of corporate cash on shipping and physical infrastructure. It strengthens the hospital of testing revenue, and crucially, it leaves doctors waiting days for answers while an organ is actively dying inside their patient. Insight Molecular Diagnostics, or IMDX, is bypassing this bottleneck entirely. Instead of spending millions to build another giant central lab, they engineered the entire diagnostic process to fit inside a box. The company manufactures these graft-assure kits, which are categorized as in vitro diagnostics, or IVDs. Their strategy is to sell these physical kits directly to the top 100 transplant centers, so hospitals can do the testing themselves. With the kit on hand, a nurse draws the patient's blood and hands it straight to the hospital's own lab. The sample goes right into an on-site digital PCR machine, analyzing the cell-free DNA locally. Removing shipping logistics and remote lab technicians from the equation gives control back to the hospital. A multi-day waiting period shrinks to rapid, localized answers. That speed gives doctors a distinct clinical edge. They no longer have to wait for physical symptoms to appear, just to rule out rejection. They can use these rapid kits for continuous, routine surveillance. This dual timeline comparison shows the impact of that speed. Routine local testing detects molecular signs of rejection up to 10 months earlier than standard methods. This head start allows physicians to adjust medications before irreversible damage occurs, keeping patients out of the biopsy room. This localized approach also creates a highly scalable business structure. Centralized competitors have to constantly build new facilities and hire staff to process more blood. IMDX operates like an arms supplier. To grow, they simply manufacture and ship more boxes. Because the hospitals run the tests themselves, the hospitals get to capture the testing revenue. Turning clients into highly incentivized partners drastically accelerates how quickly these kits can penetrate the market. Recently, IMDX's stock price has taken a hit, but this drop stems from market mechanics rather than the company's fundamentals. Short-term secondary investors sold off shares due to broad geopolitical anxieties and the natural waiting period surrounding FDA timelines. Looking past the short-term trading noise reveals a compelling mathematical reality for the underlying business. This equation outlines the unit economics. There are roughly 3 million kidney testing opportunities every year. Multiply that by the established Medicare reimbursement rate of $2,753 per test, and the total addressable market easily surpasses $1 billion. The current stock price reflects short-term volatility, but it overlooks the reality of a company building a high-barrier diagnostic network at the edges of the healthcare system that centralized competitors simply cannot reach. The timeline to capture that market is clearly defined. IMDX is on track to submit their de novo application to the FDA by the end of 2025, setting up a commercial launch in mid-2026. This chart illustrates their rollout strategy. Once regulatory authorization clears, IMDX can take the hospitals currently participating in their registry studies and directly convert them into long-term buyers of their in-house testing kits. And the blueprint extends well beyond kidneys. The company is already preparing to bring this exact decentralized model to heart transplant patients. Heart transplants account for up to 30% of testing demand in the United States. Unlike a liver, which can regenerate, a rejecting heart carries a high risk of immediate death. That severity creates a desperate clinical demand for the fastest, most accurate testing available. Once a diagnostic kit proves its worth and becomes embedded into a hospital's daily workflow, it stays there. The customer lifetime value often exceeds 30 years. By putting high-speed diagnostics directly into the hands of transplant centers, IMDX is securing a decades-long presence in the surgical suite, turning localized testing into the new baseline for organ survival.